And I'm Melva Thomas Johnson.
We're delighted that you have joined us, and we acknowledge you for being here. You know, there's a saying that goes that 80% of success in relationships is just showing up. So we want to thank you for showing up, and congrats for being here. The webinar topic for this session is three mistakes married couples and couples in committed relationships make that keeps them arguing, disconnected, and distant. And we're also going to include the number one secret to turning this around to connection and growth. Let's face it, feeling connected to someone you love can be the most wonderful and satisfying experience in the world.
But too often, that sense of dynamic, heartfelt, intimate connectivity slips away and is replaced by silent tension, frustration, disagreement, and disappointment. It could happen in any love relationship, even ours. Since we're going to be spending a little time together during our conversation, we would love to share a little bit with you about us during the beginning of our 37-year marriage.
As a couple in our second marriage, we learned a lot about what marriage looks like and feels like when it works as well as when it doesn't.
That's right.
Both marriages started off with the anticipation of a long term, fulfilling, satisfying life of mutual love, respect, and support and happiness, which, however, to our dismay, transitioned into moving to a totally different direction. So, between our previous marriages and the beginning of the one we have now, we studied everything we could learn about the secrets to staying on course for a long term, satisfying, and fulfilling marriage and family.
We read a lot of books, we studied the literature and research, we took classes, enrolled in workshops,
Yeah.
we had individual counseling, we had pre-marriage counseling, and we studied couples, not just in our professional lives, but in our personal lives as well, especially the happy ones. So when we got married, we just knew that we had it all taken care of. And everything was wonderful until we came together under the same roof.
So, by the fourth year, we got married, and all four of us began to live together. That included Melva and myself and my two sons from our first marriage. To our surprise, our internal reactions began to change when all four of us were actually living together. There was a sense of discomfort and frustration that none of us had expected. We kind of expected that everything was just going to be humpy dory and lovely and wonderful and all of that. But we
All the
were,
time.
yeah, all the time, but we were really disappointed. No one was prepared for the arguments that ensued about who was going to do what and the feeling that some of us were doing more than others.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't happen every day, but when they did happen, there was tension in our home that made everyone feel uncomfortable. I got tired of arguing and the conflict because that's not what I had signed up for our marriage. That's not what I had anticipated. We had already been through that in our previous marriages.
All of the conversations that we had where we talked all night and that kind of thing, um, just kind of disappeared because we got so busy and we were trying to incorporate these four personalities together. So um, sometimes communication broke down. And when it did, we realized that we were making the same communication mistakes over and over again.
Yes, we kept making the same mistakes. And it wasn't until I began to listen more and really hear what Malva and my sons were saying that I really understood, at least in part, what was going on. And when I did, I was able to figure out how to communicate more effectively, so we could work together more in a more efficient and in a win-win way.
I began to listen too, and as I listened more deeply, I really learned that 10% of what the arguments were about the topic, and 90% was about something deeper. And we're going to talk a little bit about that um, in our sharing with you tonight. So, the mistakes that we were making are common to many couples. We know because we see couples making these mistakes in our counseling sessions and in our workshops. And that is what we want to share with you now. So, what we're going to cover tonight um, during our time with you is three specific state mistakes that are common among most couples, whether they're married or not. Um, the first mistake is a common mistake that many women make. And that mistake is changing him, trying to change him. Now, as women, it's part of our nature to want to change things. We change our wardrobe, we change our nail polish color, we change our hair color, we change the furniture. Now, we do pretty good when we do that. However, the mistake that many women make, including me, is trying to change their husbands or their committed love partner, not from a negative intention, but because we can see something better for him. So, and when I talk about trying to change a man, I'm not talking about from abuse or any form of mistreatment. That is beyond the scope of what we are sharing with our time with you today. I'm talking about changing who he is, especially um, the, the character traits and qualities that we enjoyed in the beginning or at least tolerated, and he thought they were okay. So let's take an example of Marion and James. Now, they were married for about 32 years, and their coming together is similar to ours. They were friends, and their friendship transitioned into a romantic love relationship. All of a sudden or gradually, they began to notice that they had a romantic attraction to each other, and they were doing a lot of things together, and they bonded deeply. So they spent a lot of time having fun together. They exercised together, went to movies, took vacations, had dinner parties, uh, just the whole 9 yards together. That was 32 years ago. So let's fast forward to 32 years later. Um, their careers have skyrocketed. They've raised two lovely and accomplished daughters who are now in college. They're living in the home of their dreams, and they're enjoying material success in every area of their lives. However, something's missing. She's not happy. It seems like they're arguing every day. Date night has turned into argue night. Um, Marion's wanted to talk to James over and over and over again about the changes that she wants him to make. And James doesn't want to hear it. I mean, the fun activities have dwindled. Um, they are not spending quality connection time together. They're not even exercising together. And they've had a vacation, I think, once in the past 5 years. So her main complaint is he's working so hard and he's working so often. And when he does get home, then he falls asleep in front of the TV and she has to wake him up to go to bed. So she's frustrated, she's lonely, she's miserable, and she's a little bit suspicious about why he is avoiding her. So, what does she want him to change? Well, actually, she wants him to change spending more time. She wants that balance back. She wants that attention back that he used to give her. So, it's not what she wants him to change that is the mistake. It's how she's inviting him to change. She's got this top 10 list of all the things that he's doing wrong, who he's not anymore, what he's not doing anymore, what he doesn't have anymore. And those complaints just build up and build up and build up. And when she tries to say something to James, he either retorts back with criticism or shuts down. And she continues to make the same mistake. She, in turn, continues to tell him what he's always not doing or what he's never doing. So she continues to feel frustrated, hurt, and scared, and she just doesn't know what to do. So, since the mistake that Marion is making is how she invites uh, James to reconnect with her and change from the way that he's doing it now, there's a couple of things that she can do. One is related to the serenity prayer. There's a modified serenity prayer that God grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one that I can, and the wisdom to know it's me. So the person that Marion can change effectively is herself and the way that she invites change. She can get clear about what she needs and she can ask for it straight and not in shorthand and beating around the bush. She can refrain from the language of criticism, um, beginning with you always or you never. She can also apply the platinum rule, which is do unto others as they would like to be done unto, and find out what it is that James is wanting, what is going on with James, and coming from a place of curiosity to see what it is that he's wanting, and then try to give it as best she can.
Well, the second common mistake that some men make in relationships is what I call avoidance. The word means to dodge, escape, elude, or shun. It means to shun certain social or relationship encounters that involve significant unpleasant conversations because of the fear of criticism, disapproval, or rejection. It's kind of like keeping away from or preventing something from happening by avoiding it. It's a defense mechanism consisting of a refusal to encounter certain disagreeable situations. And this is what I have found that some men experience in their relationships when there is a conflict. An example would be, those men who might withdraw or leave or just not come home when they're expected to be home. They might go to their cave, and say things like, I don't want to talk about it, or we'll talk about it later, but later never comes. Or they might attempt to distract themselves by TV or sports or going to the gym or staying longer at work or staying up late working at home, going to the bar, going to strip clubs or having an affair, overindulging in alcohol, using drugs, both legal and illegal, and so forth. These are all what I consider to be avoidance activities that are used by some men and also some women to divert attention from whatever needs to be addressed in a relationship. You know, James would avoid unpleasant conversations with Marion when he got home. Marion would bring up something that he was upset about, and he dismiss it by saying, we'll talk about it later, and as I mentioned a moment ago, later would never come. Then he'd grab the remote to the TV and watch sports or whatever, or go um, into his home office and continue to work on things at home, at work, and find other things that would distract him from Marion's nagging. Now, while the children were still at home, the nagging wasn't as troublesome for James because there was always things that had to be done that kept James and Marion both busy. So there wasn't much time available for them to get into a lot of arguments. And they also, maintained a certain amount of restraint on the amount and intensity that they argued because they didn't want their children to witness them fighting. But now that the children have left home and are in school, James and Marion have a lot more time and are free to argue as long as they want without restraint. So the relationship between them grows increasingly worse. Things have gotten to the point where they are either going to fix what needs fixing in the marriage or get a divorce. Divorce would be devastating on both of them emotionally and financially, as well as their kids. However, they simply cannot go on the way that they have been relating. Things got so increasingly worse at home that Marion actually demanded that she and James get counseling. Initially, James was opposed, but in time he reluctantly agreed. This was a good move. Why? Because the real problem was a problem in the marriage that had to be addressed successfully, or the relationship was destined to doom. By learning some relationship skills, they were able to turn things around. It took a little time and some work, but they succeeded, and both of them are happier. Um, Men like James often try to avoid dealing with um, these issues, as I mentioned earlier. And I'd like to suggest some ways in which uh, men might be able to turn that around. So one of my suggestions is that it really is important to um, to learn some relationship skills. You know, many of us grew up in families and situations where we didn't really have good modeling in terms of how uh, couples were to work together in their relationship, and so as a consequence, we were kind of void of knowing what works best, and how to work together as a team. And so, learning some relationship skills we think is very important, and that is very helpful. The second one is that to spend time together. You know, time together like you did when you were first uh, together as a couple, when you're in the romantic stage. How you know how magnificent and wonderful that time was. Um, you almost finished each other's sentences. You were so much in love and so forth. And you spent time together, talking, being together, and doing fun things together. So that would be a second recommendation that I would make.
So, those are two mistakes that are common, that married couples and couples in love relationships make. And the number one mistake that most couples make,
Right. Okay.
is stuck communication. It's a massive mistake. And it is something that we see happening over and over and over again. So um, you may ask, what is stuck communication? So here's our definition. Our definition of stuck communication is when um, a couple is in a framework or in a position that is immovable, immobile, stiff, fixed. You know, that's how Webster would define the word. Now, we define stuck communication as uh, what it looks like when a couple is stuck in conflict. We call it defensive survival mode pattern. It's when a couple is mired in mutual blaming and shaming and criticizing or avoiding each other, like Marion and James. They're trapped on the surface of a communication breakdown with no awareness of what's going on. I mean, you know, they could really tell, each person can tell you what it is that the other person is doing that is off track, but the person who is in the midst of it, they what they are doing, their contribution, they are oblivious to it. Each person is trying to get their point across. Nobody's hearing the other person. And there's a reason why couples get stuck in this place, because they're stuck on the surface. They don't know what's going on. They don't know their blind spots. They don't know what their imago is. Um, so, what is imago? Imago is a Latin term for image. We like to describe imago as that snapshot that I was talking about. Um, it's like a couple is in a trance-like state. It's like an out-of-body experience. Um, I often say to couples when I'm explaining this is that in that moment, no logic is available to either person, and they're trying to have a logical conversation, and it's not working because they're operating from uh, the most primitive part of their brain. And this is because the human brain is wired like a time machine. It has a GPS that instantly takes a person back to what they feel is safe or dangerous. So in that moment, each person is feeling a threat. So for James and Marion, their snapshot looks like this. Um, James is feeling smothered, overwhelmed, and angry because he's unsuccessful in coming home and winding down and relaxing and finding some peace. And he's listening to Marion's complaints and criticisms. Um, Marion is feeling the bite of James's criticism. She's feeling misunderstood and discounted. And then she's reacting to him with mutual criticism, and it goes on and on and on in this trance-like state. So what they don't know is 10% of what's going on in the moment is about whatever the argument is, and 90% is about something else. So during those moments, Marion is asking herself, why won't he listen to me? How long will it be before he's looking for something else?
And James is asking himself, when will she stop nagging and how long will I have to deal with this? Whether they argued or maintained a weary silence, each evening reinforced feelings of distance and disconnection when they were together. The pain of another failed marriage, another divorce, loomed on the horizon. It was time for the last-ditch effort to save their marriage. That is why James and Marion were eager to learn the tools they needed to get unstuck.
So let's do a quick review of the tips that we have shared so far. So for Marion and women who are so frustrated because they can't get their husband to change their mind or to begin to give them the attention and the caring that they received in the beginning during the romantic stage, it's important to think about the serenity prayer and think about what it is that you can change about your reaction, because what you want is reasonable and what you want is something that you deserve. You just want to connect with someone that you love. So think about approaching it differently. Get clear about what it is that you want and need, and say it clearly, not in shorthand. And then apply the platinum rule. Do unto him that he wants done unto him, meaning instead of judging him and making him wrong, and maybe he is doing something wrong, but in terms of shifting gears, become curious about what is going on with him and what he wants, what he needs, and give it to him as best you can.
And remember that avoidance is not a solution to any problem. Now, it may be that you may not know how to be able to resolve your conflicts and your differences in your relationship, but that's why it's necessary to learn some new relationship skills. Yes, in order to have a successful relationship, both of you must learn and then practice using some effective relationship skills. These just don't come to you by accident. They must be learned. And also remember that it's important that you spend some time together, some quality time together. You know, you probably fell in love when you took the time for each other, when you laughed and talked and shared and did special things for each other that made you feel special. The same things that brought you together are the same things that will keep you together over the long haul.
And the truth of the matter is, Arguing and communication breakdown over and over again is not only exhausting, but damaging to each partner and to the relationship.
So, how does a couple turn a communication breakdown into a common communication breakthrough? First, they need a communication solution to create a safe environment to shift out of survival mode into a safety mode to understand what is going on beneath the surface where their imago is in full bloom. After they understand what is really going on, they need a plan of action to turn things around, and that plan needs to be implemented consistently as a way of life. The results of one of the largest studies of the uh, of, of marital and relationship happiness and longevity was is so important that it's more important than values, interests, age, or anything else. The greatest predictor of success in marriage and love relationship is an equal dose of a couple's strong commitment to learn to communicate with integrity and to develop those skills to be used in their relationship.
Without that, both partners will continue to inflict pain and hurt on each other. Ultimate pain is breakup, separation, or divorce, or staying in a relationship in misery. It doesn't have to be that way. I mean, in this economy, the cost of divorce is phenomenal. The standard of living for divorced couples goes down tremendously. Throw in the cost of divorce lawyers and the cost of splitting assets, and the amount could cost thousands of dollars. That is why we facilitate a very special weekend for couples to guide them step by step to get back on track. We would like to share a little bit about that program with you.
The name of our program is the Mining for Gold Getting Unstuck Relationship Seminar. It's based on the principles of the Imago relationship theory and practice that was developed by Harville Hendricks and Helen Hunt. Um, the Mining for Gold communicate to connect mind, body, and spirit is also an important aspect of the workshop. By the end of the weekend workshop, couples will have the tools to develop skills to discover the root of the conflicts that they have and to create a win-win solution to bridge the gap from where they are now to where they want to be in the relationship. These are the tools that happy couples and satisfying, loving, and fulfilling relationships enjoy.
Yes. During the 2 days, couples will learn how to use this transformational communication tool in an atmosphere of confidentiality and discretion. Um, you'll learn all the concepts we're sharing in an intimate group setting. However, all your conversations with each other will be private. There's an agreement before we begin the weekend that nothing about what is shared in the room will leave the room, including who's in attendance. Your privacy is something we protect with abandon. Couples who have attended our workshops in the past were happy and relieved that we had this ground rule. You will not be required to say anything out loud that you don't want to. So it's not a big group therapy session.
No,
It's a personal 2 days for the two of you.
right. Couples will learn 5 processes to create a safe conversational environment. One is through personal reflection and sharing. You will learn about your imago and the imago of your mate, the unfinished business that is beneath the surface of your snapshot when you guys are in conflict and communication breaks down. Number 2, through a safe and effective communication tool, you will learn why your conversations actually break down, and you'll know what to do about it. And number 3, as you continue to practice this communication tool, you will learn the blueprint for change and transformation beneath the surface of your communication breakdown. 4, you will learn how to add more positive interactions and romance into your relationship. And five, you will co-create a mutual vision to keep you focused when you leave the weekend, and much, much more. Imagine how a new language between the two of you will heal and repair the wounds inflicted during conflicts that you've had in the past. Imagine how that language will give voice to a deeper communication where harsh words or stiffening silences once existed between you. Imagine expanded levels of giving and receiving what you would like to feel in your relationship.
So, we know the power of this weekend because we've been doing it, this particular one, since 1997. And we know it's powerful, but don't just take our word for it. Here's a few testimonials. There are, I'm not giving names because of what we said about confidentiality, but we did have permission to share these. One person says, there's no words available to express my gratitude without a mago. I felt like divorce was the only option. Uh, After divorce, another possible failed relationship. Press repeat. Thank you, Melvin and Jesse, with sincere and heartfelt gratitude. Here's another one. You guys were fun and wonderfully complimentary with regards to presenting. You guys were instrumental in making 2 tough days fun. Thank you. Just one more. The two of you created a great space of comfort for us to open up, laying down our guard and growing together. So, um, uh, we have found the experience to be quite enlightening, and we feel grateful to have the opportunity to facilitate the 2 days.
Well, let's talk about how the workshop can benefit you. We would love to talk to you about how the workshop can be helpful and of specific value to you. Just click on the link that we've provided on the screen, and you will be able to sign up for a free complimentary telephone session with both of us. We would love to have that conversation with you. So, as we close, um, we want to share that link with you, which is mfgmarriage.com/teleconf. TELECONF. mfgmarriage.com/teleconf. We want to thank you so much for joining us. We hope that what we have shared has been helpful and informative. I'm Jesse Johnson.
And I'm Melva Thomas Johnson.
We look forward to talking to you.